Welcome to the Independent Producers Organization program. This is the program that showcases independent producers, their productions, and provides a forum for discussing issues which affect independent television producers here in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay, there.
All right, caught me micing up. Welcome to the program. This is the Independent Producers Organization live showcase. We are aired second Wednesday of every month, and as the lead-in said, we air programs having to do with the local area, sometimes national, and bring in producers. Tonight we don't have any producer to talk to, but we do have with me tonight is Richard Carpenter, and he brought a guest in that he's going to introduce right now.
Okay, the guest, finally, we got Solve in here. And that's what I'm anxious to know about, more about it than some distant word that they're going to be down at the beach cleaning up. I really want to find out more about it. So Quentin Bauer from Solve is our guest today. I'm looking forward to really hearing all about it from the ground up. So I appreciate all this stuff, and I know we can't get it all on the screen and all that, but we'll go ahead. And why don't you go ahead and talk about yourself and your relationship with Solve and what you do?
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for inviting me here tonight.
Sure.
Really
Does Solve have a meaning, or is it just...
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to hear you talk to you a little bit about Solve and maybe what it means. And yeah, it used to stand for Stop Oregon Litter and Vandalism.
That's right.
But
That's
as you'll hear,
That's right.
as you'll hear, we've changed over the years, and so we've recently added the E to the end. And so yeah, I'm happy to tell you guys all about kind of how we've transitioned and evolved into a real environmentally focused organization that's trying to make a difference with volunteers out there.
How long have you been...
So I've been with Solve for 7 years.
And it's been around for a lot longer
And
than
it's
that.
been around, yeah. So we're actually,
Decades.
it's our 45th anniversary next year. It's the 30th anniversary of our beach cleanups and the 25th anniversary of our Solve It Earth Day event. So next year is a really big year.
Where does the support for all that coming? Are you wired into the government a lot, or?
Yeah,
foundations.
People used to think that we were actually a government agency because we were founded by Governor Tom McCall in 1969.
Okay.
But we're a nonprofit organization, kind of have a diverse funding source between individuals, just gracious individuals donating to us.
Is it a membership or just donations?
Just donations, yeah. We don't have a formal membership program, but we have a pretty large donor pool spread all over Oregon, from small donors, giving us $1 or $2, all the way up to our major donors.
I thought I saw a list.
Yeah, we've got some lists in our annual report there of all the donors. But yeah, it's a mix of individuals, foundations, corporate sponsorships. So we've got some businesses that sponsor our big one-day events, and then government. We do have some government contracts for our watershed restoration projects and some other programs.
Zipcar even.
Yeah, we have.
Bank, yeah.
Yep, we've got some great board members representative of different companies around
Okay.
The area. Okay. So yeah, I've been there 7 years. I'm the statewide team leader, so I oversee our programs that cover all of Oregon. Actually started off as a volunteer in high school, going out to the beach cleanup. We had an ecology club. One of our big things we look forward to is going camping at Fort Stevens twice a year and going and cleaning up the beach while we were out there.
Oh yeah,
so.
up there. Okay.
Isn't that where Lewis and Clark wintered over in Fort Stevens?
I think so, yeah. My Oregon history is getting a little, losing it a little bit now.
So much.
That's right. That's right. So, do you try to figure out how to do the whole beach? I mean, Oregon Beach.
Yeah. So we do. We cover the whole beach twice a year with those beach cleanups, and we have great partnership with Oregon State Parks, which manages most of the beach. And we've got these great volunteer leaders that have adopted different parts of the coast. A lot of them are park rangers that help out as well. Okay. And so they lead the volunteer events for us, and that's how we cover the coast. We have 45 check-in sites that folks can go out to. So, in Fort Stevens, it's the park rangers there, and Cannon Beach, it's this wonderful volunteer, Janae, who just does a great job getting the whole community out and having treats and coffee for everybody ready and making sure everyone's safe.
Caravan people over from inland too, though, don't you?
Yeah, we don't have a formal kind of bus or something, which would be cool. Yeah, if anyone's got a bus, that'd be great. But mainly folks kind of, we help them carpool, but we get a lot of people who take it as a day out to the beach and also to give back. But it's actually, we've ranged from last spring, it was like 75 degrees in Cannon Beach, beautiful days, to the fall beach cleanup. We actually had to cancel or postpone this year because it was during the giant rainstorm back in September. So the weather, yes, the weather is kind of really hit or miss. So that impacts how many people we get out there.
Do you reschedule or not?
Yeah, that one we were able to reschedule almost all of the cleanups. A lot of them just finished up at the end of October.
Okay, I almost want to say, how do they get involved? They need to call.
Yeah, so we make it so easy for you to get involved. The easiest way is to check our website where we have an ongoing list of events. And so a lot of people know about the big one-day events, but any Saturday morning you can go out and there's volunteer events. Mainly in the Portland area, yeah. But it's just kind of, we're there helping people lead these volunteer events whenever it works best for them. So it's really kind of depends on the particular Saturday, but almost every Saturday there'll be some event that you can sign up on the website. You can give us a call. So the website is www.solveoregon.org.
Is that with the E or without
the E? SOLVE Oregon.org. Or you can give us a call, 503-844-9571.
Okay.
And we can help you sign up there.
That's right. It's so easy to look it up, but otherwise I wish we had it on the screen. But that's all right. It's too easy to look up.
No, with the days of Google,
yeah,
right.
It's just easy to Google it and it's right there.
Yeah, but there's just multiple ways to get involved. You can come out to those existing events, just 9 o'clock most Saturdays, get out there and volunteer. Or we're there to help people lead their own events. So if you got maybe your local neighborhood has a trash problem, people are littering, you want to go and get folks to pick it up, we're there to help you do that. Your local park maybe has some blackberry that's grown out of control. We have a system set up to get volunteers out there to help you. So you can get involved that way. We also have Stream Team Captain program where you can become a leader and lead our tree planting events. So just, lots of great ways to get involved.
And you're doing an awful lot of different things too. So do you I'm sure you mentioned this, but just in passing, you partner like with the city and with the Forest Service and a lot of different larger groups.
Yeah, because we don't manage, or own any property or land, where really in our mission is to, do projects to improve the environment. We have to partner on all of the projects. So usually it's with a local parks district that has work that needs to be done, or with the city if it's cleaning up a neighborhood. And I don't think I mentioned it yet, but our mission is to bring Oregonians together to improve the environment and build a legacy of stewardship. And so it's really those kind of three key parts. We want to bring Oregonians together, young and old, rich and poor, folks that maybe haven't interacted together, out volunteering to improve the environment. So, we've got some pretty heavy environmental issues in Oregon, but a chunk of them can be, anyone can get out there and volunteer and help improve on those things. So we want folks out there on projects, and then we want to build a legacy of stewardship. So we don't want to be cleaning up the beach forever and ever. Hopefully people stop littering, people will be responsible out when they're out on the ocean and not have their debris go overboard. And so we want to kind of ingrain in people to not litter, to plant native plants in their yard, remove invasive plants when they get a chance. So that's that legacy of stewardship there. And
right.
People,
you're going to have to get people young.
Exactly, yeah, that's why I was just going to mention that. Over half so we have 35,000 volunteers each year that come out and help us out.
Okay.
And almost half of those are under 18. So we've got a Green Team program in Portland where we work directly with high school, middle school, and elementary school kids, get them out planting trees and restoring things. And then for the beach cleanups and events like that, just get tons of Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, church groups, just lots of youth out there.
Where do they get the incentive to come? I mean, especially these ones that are 17, 16, 15. I'm trying to think what would get them to motivate them rather
to get them out from the video game.
I know. I think it's a range of things. I think when I was in high school, it was that I did have that connection to the environment and caring about the environment. So it's through that ecology club that I got involved. And I definitely meet kids like that are just passionate about the environment, and that's why they're out there. But then there are folks that are in scout groups or in a church group or out with their friends, service groups. So, I mean, you'd be amazed. Sure, we read all about kids kind of stuck inside playing video games, but and that's definitely an issue we need to address. But can't forget that there are a lot of youth out there that are kind of gung-ho and doing this great work.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
That's great. I remember we used to not even think about that years ago. You just made a
did.
mess. You just strew things all. You almost. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but people just would leave stuff all over. And you're right. Trying to get it ingrained in everybody, then that would put you guys out of business.
Yeah, well, yeah, we
That'd
want to
be
go. I mean,
great.
we want to go out of business eventually. That would be.
Yeah,
and
but-
move on to something else.
But there's still, you know, trails to be fixed and
There'll
trees to be
always be
planted.
something.
There's always a lot to do.
Again, when they go to the website, like say, if I or someone went to the website, would I be able to find a place where volunteers are showing up and you can help do stuff here?
Yep, on that main site, you just click Get Involved, and there'll be
okay.
a Find a Volunteer event calendar there, and you can just scroll down and find your events that are coming up. But you can also just give us a call, and happy to talk you through and find the event that'll fit with you
Okay.
the best.
That's good. I see some of the stuff, invasive plant species. You know, I had a producer at the Tuolumne Valley that was involved with Terwilliger, the whole area, and one of their objectives was to get rid of that ivy that kept going up the trees. Is that?
It's a never-ending problem over there in Washington Park and all
Yeah.
the places, Forest Hills or whatever that is over there.
So that's a big part of what we do. Yeah,
That
ivy
is?
removal, blackberry removal. They're kind
Oh.
of big invasives that we see around here. And so we have projects we actually have a restoration site at Lewis and Clark College, kind of bordering Tryon Creek there, not far from Terwilliger, and we've been removing ivy there for years. We've got projects at Tryon Creek State Park. We work closely with the Friends of Tryon Creek State Park to work with their volunteer coordinator and help them get volunteers out there removing ivy. And you mentioned Forest Park Conservancy, Portland Parks, work with them on various volunteer projects to get folks out there removing the ivy.
Okay.
So you know, you mentioned earlier before the program with the Forest Service that you do trail work. So you repair trails. Do you also create trails?
Yeah, trails are kind of little out of our focus. We definitely do, and typically the way we work with trails is making sure that the invasive plants that are around a trail get removed, or if there's litter that gets removed. The kind of 4 project focuses that we have are planting new native trees and shrubs, removing non-native invasive plants, picking up litter, and monitoring and maintenance of restoration sites. So yeah, we do some work on trails, but there's some great local organizations that are really focused on trails. So
that.
we kind of leave it to them, but we're happy to direct folks to them more if they're
Sure.
working on trail projects.
You know, Fred Scheit, one of our producers here, producers mostly to do with health shows, that's what he did. He volunteered to take care of trails and the places where people stop
Yeah.
at the trails. So there's somebody out there that doing that kind of thing. Planting native species. We have the tree planting people here, but they're from. No, they're not necessarily to do with the city, but are they separate from you? Obviously.
You mean in the forest, tree planters?
What?
Friends of
I'm
trees?
just looking at this.
Yeah, so we definitely plant, a big focus of ours is planting the native trees and shrubs. If you're going to remove that ivy, if you just left it again, the ivy's probably going to come back. You need to
might
replace
anyway.
it. Yeah, it's probably going to come back anyway. But you want
takes
to
a while.
you want to replace it with native trees and shrubs, and eventually they might shade them out, or that's your main goal, is to make it so it's not just a monoculture of just ivy, that you've got some new plants. So you want to go back and plant back in, and volunteers' favorite activity is planting trees, without a doubt. Especially we were talking about kids. Kids
really?
love planting trees. They want to
Really?
name their tree, talk to their tree, all sorts of fun stuff like that. So tree plantings take a little bit more effort. You got to make sure you have a plan to take care of them. You got to come up with the money to get the trees and everything. But we love doing tree planting projects, and people just really enjoy knowing that you plant this tree today and it's going to be here for years and years to come.
And generations, hopefully. Well, there's also the ground cover that you need to put in, or the salal or whatever, the native ground cover that as you say, couldn't compete neck for neck with ivy, but once you create the conditions for it, it might be able to hold its own.
Yeah, and I mean, native trees are really important for reducing erosion, providing shade over a stream to cool down the water for fish to be able to survive, as well as providing wildlife habitat. So we definitely do enjoy doing those tree planting events.
And like you say, it'd probably be the most children, teenagers would probably think more of that than anything else. Pulling up
yeah.
ivy isn't still so glamorous, but planting a tree.
Yeah. Yeah, I think beach cleanup on a sunny day is number one for
Yeah.
volunteers, and
Right,
then number
right.
two would be tree planting on a non-rainy day.
Not you mentioned beach cleanup. Do you have any statistics on how much? So you say you on one day you do the whole coast.
Mm-hmm.
So you have any statistics on how much garbage you guys haul out in one year?
Oh man, I don't have that handy. I think
Tons,
45,000 pounds jumps out of my head. I think it's probably around
20
that. So
tons.
20 tons of debris probably on our beach cleanup. We usually have about 3,000 to 4,000 volunteers out there.
And you
So,
have local landfills that take it.
Yeah, so we have a great relationship with the local coast haulers. All the haulers up and down the coast donate their services and disposal.
Really?
For that.
Because they
They've
have
been
to
doing that
haul
for
it and they have to
years,
dump
so-
it.
Yeah, so that
And-
really helps us out
And
a
that's
lot.
expensive these days. So they all donate that.
Yep, yep.
Well, you're getting Oregonians together. That's part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very true, yeah.
Do you have a nursery or anything like that? Because I'm
Yeah.
sitting here thinking about Portland. You know, they got a nursery out in 60th Division.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so do you have something like that?
Yeah, it'd be great if we had a nursery. What we actually do is we either purchase plants from wholesale growers, and we have a great relationship with Clean Water Services out in Washington County, which is the utility water district out there, and they provide funding for Solve, and also they have a giant nursery where they provide trees and shrubs for nonprofits and government agencies and things. So they provide all the plants for our Washington County
That was-
work.
Like you said, you didn't have land where you could do all that. So
Yeah, yeah.
So
What we
you
do,
just
we
deal with
partner.
other
We partner.
people.
Yeah, we partner
Sure.
with folks. So whether we do some work on private property, folks that live right along a stream and want some help restoring their property, but also just a lot of public lands.
Sure.
Things.
Well, I would think that your motto would be "Don't reinvent the wheel." Other people are doing these things and have the land, so the whole idea is to get Oregonians together and take advantage of what other people are doing and put that into the
Yeah.
mix.
what's non-native invasive plants in Oaks Bottom? Is that, or do you know?
Yeah, that's so we've got
just
a
to have
big event coming up on Saturday, November 23rd, Family Volunteer Day.
Okay.
That's a national day of service. We're trying to get families out volunteering together.
A National Day of Service
Yeah.
in what way? What?
So it's just kind of draws the attention of the community to, this is a great day, get out and volunteer. We want folks volunteering every Saturday, of course, but this is kind of a one day to get the word out that volunteering as a family is really great. So we got 5 different events that Saturday, the 23rd, and one of them is removing non-native plants at Oaks Bottom, which is over kind of by Oaks Park.
Yeah.
Here in Portland, and so we're partnering with Portland Parks on that one. They have a Portland Parks Nature program where they lead volunteer events. So we're partnering with them to get folks out volunteering. I think we already got 25 people signed up to go out to that event, so that'll be a good one.
And there's other events besides that one, though.
Yeah.
What are some of those?
Yeah, so we've also got a tree planting out at Beaver Creek out in Troutdale.
Beaver Creek.
Beaver
and
Creek.
Troutdale.
It's right where the Sandy goes into the Columbia River, kind of Sandy River Delta.
Right where they're building that overpass.
Yep, so it's just to the east of the overpass. There's a creek, Beaver Creek, that runs right along
I didn't know
the
that.
Sandy River there.
I
And
didn't know
it's
there was one there.
one place I've seen beaver. It kind of tucked back there. And so we're going to be planting trees out there. We got a tree planting out at Council Creek in Cornelius out western Washington County. And then out at Tryon Creek, we'll be removing invasive plants out at the state park, working with the Friends of Tryon Creek State Park.
So you're planting trees around creeks. What specific types of trees are you planting? Like
Ooh.
willows or?
Yeah, it's a mix. So yeah, we usually plant willows kind of right along the creek, cedar trees, Douglas fir, Nootka rose is a shrub that we plant a lot of, snowberry is a shrub, salal you mentioned, we plant
Sure.
that. So it kind of depends on the different sites.
Mainly for
to
erosion,
plant
I would
that.
think.
Yeah, so it's a mixture of kind of controlling erosion along the creek, providing shade right along the creek. A lot of it's for shade. because we've cut down and removed a lot of
Keep
the
the
native
water cool.
vegetation. So we got to keep the water cool for salmon and healthy salmon habitat, and then also just wildlife habitat around the creek and riparian area.
Well, the fact that there's beaver there is a good sign.
Yeah, you got to plant a
I'm
few extra
surprised.
trees because the got to give some up for the beaver. But we have the students out there on our green team caging a good chunk of the plants to protect it from the beaver, and then kind of let the beaver have some of it as well, because they're a healthy part of it.
So are the beavers, are they building dams, or they have to be controlled to a great degree, because they'll be building dams, and I mean the things that they do are great,
Yeah.
but not necessarily every place that there's people around.
Yeah, I'm not fully into the details of that site, but I know, at some sites you can kind of let them be and let them build their dams, but then there's other areas where they kind of come into conflict with human settlement and home building and things, where it's more of an issue.
You know, after they plant everything on the creeks, you're not supposed to be able to touch or do anything within 200 feet of that creek or waterway. Do you know? There is a thing to do with that.
What do you mean after it's planted?
I mean, you can't come to a creek or river and say, let's take these trees down so when we build a cabin we can look down. You aren't able to mess with those trees without talking to the county or something like that. And
Yeah, generally there's rules about doing
Yeah.
any sort of development right along that's trying to
Well,
protect this sort of
You can't even
work,
take
so
a
we're not
tree
needing
out of your
to do
parking
this,
strip
yeah.
without getting a permit, or plant one.
Oh,
So yeah, I can imagine it's even more stringent along the creeks.
I know sometimes people have taken down real good trees in the city. I read once where the city really got mad at the guy.
And once it's
Shouldn't
down,
have done that.
Yeah, well, maybe they can always say they didn't know, but
Well, sure. Something amazing about all this stuff. Rock Creek, is that out
that's out past Beaverton on
on the freeway?
Yeah, so there's a couple.
Sunset.
There's a couple of rock creeks, and we've actually
That's
done a
what
project
I
on the area
asked.
that you're talking about out there, like I think it's 185th, kind of by PCC Rock Creek
Right.
campus. So
Yeah.
we actually worked with PCC Rock Creek a few years ago to do a restoration project there. It's really great. We're actually working with them again on another project. But that Rock Creek that we have a tree planting coming up on is actually out in Clackamas County, flows into the Clackamas River.
whereabouts?
Kind of Happy Valley
Oh, okay.
area
Okay, you're saying
there.
another Rock Creek.
Yeah. You'd think they could come up with new names for
And
this to
it'd
be
be
less confusing.
in
but
Clackamas County more.
What's different counties?
kind of east, so right before, kind of Damascus, Clackamas area there. It's like 172nd and 224, 212 area.
Yeah, you can go all the way out Foster and get to that area.
Yep, or
yeah.
Yep. So I'll have to.
Well, so is that what this is? Friends of Rock Creek here?
Yeah, so we've got a
Student newsletter?
That's a student newsletter. So Clackamas High School Green Team works a lot on Rock Creek. So they've put together each of our green teams. We've got about, I don't know, how many students we're working with. Just a whole lot of green teams, probably 30 different green teams around the Portland metro area. So these are different schools and school groups that adopt different sites and come out. So my old high school, Westland High School's got a green team. Clackamas High School. There's Rachel Carson Environmental Middle School, which is actually out
really?
in Beaverton near
Yeah.
that other Rock Creek. And they adopt the site, and we have staff and volunteers out there helping them plant trees and do water quality testing. It's a great way to learn about science and about the environment while getting your hands dirty and making a difference.
Yeah, science, specifically ecology. How everything fits together and how you mess with one, you mess with it all. And that's something that they're not taught in school.
And I mean, that's how I got excited to do this sort of work. My teacher in high school, Jim Hartman, who's still there and one of our green team teachers at Westland High School, he
Okay.
really inspired us to get involved in the environment. We went out and had Wetlands Wednesday out there battling blackberry every Wednesday in class, and he's still hard at work out there. And a good chunk of my classmates have gone on to do environmental careers. So.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, so you can really see
Well,
how
that's-
getting kids involved when they're young really excite them, and they can see what they're learning in the classroom. When they learn about ecology, when they learn about the water cycle and wildlife habitat, they can see why this matters. They go out on the creek and can see how what they're learning can actually be used in the field.
Well, that gives me a lot of hope for the future, because a lot of like you were saying, we used to just throw it away. In the Rocky Mountains, they just dumped all the tailings from all the minings, and it went down both sides of those mountains into the watersheds on either side, and you know, the solution to pollution is dilution, that type of attitude, and it caught up with us eventually. And it's nice to know that we have organization like Friends of Beaver Creek, Friends of Rock Creek, Friends of Tryon Creek, and that are working and bringing young people on board to move forward to get away from that, because there's still that attitude, especially corporate attitude, for resource extraction and everything else be damned, and that's what's brought us to this point. And if it wasn't for organizations like yours, we'd be living in a desert, probably.
Yeah, well, I mean,
maybe
we're
not
just
so much here,
yeah.
but
We're just so lucky in Oregon that there's so many people who care about the environment,
Right.
whether it's a deep concern for the health of the environment, or just because they're big mountain climbers or kayakers or fishermen or hunters or whatever it is. We got kind of a special thing in Oregon where people care about the outdoors for one reason or another. We can all, we can all
Those
get
people
behind.
are the ones that are going to see things strewn all over the place and become more conscious of it. See, I'm going to make a trip out there and just pick up maybe or something like that. I know.
well, they take it personal, because if you have a connection to a piece of land, then you're going to take it personal when it's being mistreated, polluted, or whatever, and you're going to want to make it better. I mean, we don't. None of these creeks that you're talking about have salmon. They probably don't even have trout, but they do have ecosystems there. With crustaceans and different bugs, and it's a living thing, and it's great that kids can learn that. Do you have is this, like, say you go out with Friends of Beaver Creek, or you go out with Friends of Rock Creek? Now, in what capacity do you go out with them, and what how do they relate to what's going on?
Yeah, so those groups are actually the student groups, so the different school groups, and so we would go out with them, with their teacher usually once or twice a month with our green team staff, and there's usually a really strong education component and then a strong service component.
That you are providing
So,
that.
That we're providing that, yeah. So we're learning about, teaching them about macroinvertebrates, like you mentioned, kind of the bugs living in the stream. So we're talking about why that's important, how they can indicate the health of the stream, and then they go and test the water for how healthy is the macroinvertebrate. What are macroinvertebrates in here? What's the water? And then we can share that information to other kind of scientist people that can use it to help improve the stream. But yeah, we work with just kind of general kind of community groups. I work with a guy, his name's Steve Meisen out in Westland, and he found it's just local park along the Willamette River called Burnside Park there in Westland. And it was covered in that ivy you talked about, growing out of control. And he said, man, I need to do something about that. He lived about 2 blocks away. And we've helped him every third Saturday or second Saturday. He's out there leading a Solve volunteer group, removing that ivy. And I think it's been a few years now. It took him about 5 years, but got rid of all the ivy off the trees and off the ground too. So it's almost an ivy-free. Some still coming back here and there, and he's got to maintain it. But
That's heavy work, 'cause you got to pry that stuff with a screwdriver off the tree.
Yeah.
Well, don't you just cut it? That's
Right, and it will die,
Totally.
but you want to get it out of there. You need
Yeah.
to, because
As much as you
they'll
can.
live right off the tree.
Oh,
They'll put roots right into the tree, and
Yeah, I
depending
mean-
on what kind of tree it is.
Yeah, generally the way we do it is I think it's called the lifesaver method, where you cut it at shoulder height and at knee height, and you kind of disconnect it from the ground, and it'll grow for a little while, but eventually it'll die off, and hopefully the tree will be okay. Unfortunately, sometimes there's so much on there, like you're saying, you got to pry it off that it can become so heavy that it pulls the tree down, and unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that. But luckily, you don't have to get every last bit off the tree. It's kind of disconnected from the ground. And what you're trying to do is kind of free the tree enough that it can keep growing and that new plants and native plants can grow back around
Right.
it, even if there's going to be some ivy that comes back.
from a technical standpoint, okay, here you have a tree and you're pulling the ivy away from it. You can't plant right next to that tree.
Yeah, no, you generally don't plant right next to the tree, but you can plant pretty close.
Okay.
If there's shrubs like the salal you mentioned, that's one that you typically would find if you're just hiking in the up in Mount Hood. You'd
ferns.
see a little sword
Fern,
fern,
yeah,
licorice fern, maiden fern, salal, snowberry. Those are things that get pretty close. to the
Fern's a
tree.
good thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, they're all native, so
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure there are probably some non-native ferns, but Most ferns you see, yeah, are really good.
Okay.
And then Oregon grape, which is Oregon's what, shrub or
Flower,
flower or
actually,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So Oregon grape, there's Oregon grape that gets 6 feet. There's Oregon grape that are ground cover. So there's, I've gone through fields of them up in the woods on hikes, and that's something you could use to keep ivy at bay. It may not work
Yep.
totally. You got to get in there and help a little bit. And there's other things besides ivy too. I mean, is there anything that you folks deal with other than ivy?
Yeah, I mean,
That is
obviously blackberry is a huge
the
one.
Himalayan,
so Himalayan blackberry.
yeah.
So you'll see fields of blackberry. It's a great example of why invasive plants are a problem, because they just grow out of control. Once you've kind of disturbed an area, blackberry will come in and grow. So that one, it's even harder then. So ivy is pretty easy. You kind of wrap it up and pull it out and cut it off
Well,
the tree.
it ain't stabbing you
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
Yeah,
but then blackberry, it's stabbing you. You got to cut it, then you got to dig up the root, and then you got to plant something on top of
Right,
it. So,
because-
so that's a big one. Clematis that kind of grows and tangles up tree.
Yeah, I have that written down here,
Morning,
clematis, yeah.
morning glory.
Bindweed.
Kind of bindweed. Yeah, there's. Japanese knotweed is kind of a nasty one. That's the one we try not to use herbicides at all. That's why we get volunteers out there to do it. But Japanese knotweed, you can dig down. I've seen roots that go 15 feet underground. They've dug
Holy
down,
smokes.
and so
sure
you end
what
up
it
doing
is.
more damage
I'll have to
than
look at it.
you'd solve by digging it out. So that one we kind of inject sometimes one by one into the stems and let it die off. But that's a particularly nasty one.
Now these are all invasives. I mean, they were native somewhere.
Yeah, so Japanese knotweed probably from Japan,
But the-
Himalayan blackberry from the Himalayas. But they in that environment there are probably some natural kind of
Yeah,
predators
checks and
with
balances
checks and
there,
balances,
yeah.
and here just for whatever reason they can just grow unchecked, and so that's kind of we call them non-native invasive plants. So the invasive part is that they kind of grow out of control and cause problems, and the non-native part means they're not from here. Where you've got plenty of non-natives that aren't invasives, like your rose in your front yard. It's probably
All
from
your-
somewhere
all your-
else, but it
all
didn't.
your hybrids,
They don't grow out of control and take over things, so they're not invasive.
Do you
but-
deal with any invasives in the animal kingdom?
We don't. It's kind of a tricky subject. You don't want. We're not a
Really?
big fan of having volunteers out there killing nutria with their bare hands or anything like that. So we do some. I think we've hired some people to trap nutria at some of our restoration
What
sites
is
where
that,
they're
nutria?
causing. What's that?
What is that? Nutria?
So a nutria is kind of like a big rat. In
Yeah,
some ways, it looks
right,
like a beaver,
right,
but
right.
it's got kind of a rat tail and big teeth, and so those can do a lot of damage where they dig into the side of creeks and cause erosion. And so I've had to get rid of them at some sites.
There's some
Yes,
fish.
And
beavers
I
are
think there's
good.
frogs, and there's some fish.
Well, I was
but
thinking.
beavers
I
are
think
good.
mainly what I was thinking about. You see the signs on the freeway that you got to wash your boat before you come
Oh
in.
yes, aquatic invasive. for
Aquatic,
sure.
like about barnacles or things
Yeah,
like
zebra
that.
mussel.
There you go,
And
that
there's
was
another
it.
mussel I can't think of right now. But yeah, those are major issues, and our focus on that is kind of education, letting people know about invasives. The whole wash your boat. Wash your boots if you're out there walking around in different waterways. But we don't get involved in the actual
But
getting
education's
rid of the
important.
invasive.
though.
But education's the most important part, especially with these invasives that haven't got a foothold here yet. But we're worried that they're going to get transported in.
No, they
from
can
somewhere
take
else.
over complete lakes and things,
Oh yeah.
People keep bringing stuff in from different places.
and not even being aware of it, like with these
Yeah,
mussels.
that's right. And they think, oh, this plant will be really good over here.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah, well, that is why education is just such an important
Right,
thing of
right.
everything we do. So we did a new strategic plan a few years ago, and in it we wanted to make sure that at every SOLV event you go to, that you leave with some sort of education, understanding of why you're doing what you're doing.
Oh.
So all the stuff we've been talking about tonight, we want folks to know why we're planting the native trees, how it helps things, why we're removing the invasive plants, why they're a problem, and then for litter, a lot of people know litter, it's bad because kind of
Yeah.
makes things look dirty and doesn't look good, but they might not be as aware of the problems it causes for wildlife, where you've got fish and birds eating the cigarette butts or eating little pieces of plastic, and then their stomachs fill up with plastic, and they stop eating, and then they die.
Their
That's
intestines.
exactly
or,
right. That
or
was
turtles eating plastic bags, or birds getting tangled in fishing line. So we really want people to kind of understand that part of it. And people then have a better volunteer experience, I think, as well, when they kind of understand all of the information around why they're doing the project.
Yeah, because everybody's heard about what is it, a mass of plastic out in the ocean as big as Texas or some damn thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everybody's heard of that.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of smaller scale issues with it.
Yeah, the Pacific Gyre just out there in the ocean. You know, it's not like you could walk across it or even maybe see it, but just floating like just below the surface, there's a lot of microplastics. So, you know, plastic's one of those things that never really goes away. It just breaks into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. So, yeah, there's a big area out there that has just covered in these little microplastics, and slowly, you know, some of it breaks off and then washes ashore, and that's kind of when we clean it up. So the whole goal is, you know, to educate people so they're not adding to this problem while also picking up all the stuff when it washes ashore.
What is the majority of what you pick up of that 45 tons at the coast?
Yeah, I mean,
Is
not
it
probably not
plastic?
weight-wise, but cigarette butts by far number one item folks find.
Well, I can remember when I smoked, you know, you
Yeah.
flip the filter, you know, for years.
Well,
I'd
because it
smoked
seems
for
like it's
years.
paper, right? You know, it seems like it's kind of papery, but it's really a lot of it's plastic, like some kind of shredded up plastic.
And it
And
doesn't-
that's why you see cigarette butts hanging around so long on the sidewalk, is because it's not paper. It's something, you know, a plastic that sticks around more. So plastic's a big one. Plastic bags, just little bits of like people lighting off fireworks out at the coast on the 4th of July. We work with a lot of the cities to do cleanups afterwards to kind of clean up the
Yeah.
mess people leave behind. But then a lot of the little plastic from that gets left behind, and then fishing
Fishing.
line.
I would
and
think a lot of
fishing
fast
debris.
food remnants.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. I know by my house you can see there's the convenience store, and then there's a trail of trash from the convenience store to the nearest storm drain. So it's not just our beaches or natural areas that have this problem. It's you know, our city streets and sidewalks that have a lot of trash that end up in the storm drain and then in the river
And
and
then,
the ocean.
especially when
So-
there's wind.
Oh yeah, yep. I'm kind of on the east side of Portland, where we get a lot of the east winds and things are just blowing out of people's trash cans or
Yeah,
blowing
I'm
down
glad
the
to
road.
see that they're dealing with them plastic bags too, because you'll see them things 30 feet up in
Mm,
the trees
mm-hmm.
stuck. You know, they just get everywhere.
No doubt. They say I find them buried in the sand, where you like going down a foot and your plastic bag is buried under the sand. So,
Yeah, the only thing that really destroys plastic bags is the sun.
yeah,
Plastic.
just
I mean, in the
sun and
ground, it'll be
time,
there
yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
There's so much that little bit pieces of information like that kids aren't going to get that in school unless they specifically go, you know, or become friends of such and such, or involved with an organization like yours. You provide an incredible service, not just for the kids, but for everybody around them, because then they're going to, as you said, you become environmental stewards, or they come and become make their living in the environment somehow. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, we really hope it'll be that spark, you know, for the students that we work with to get involved in this sort of thing. But you know, the projects we involve art in the projects, poetry. So we've got people that do. We work with this organization called Honoring Our Rivers that does a poetry writing anthology each year. So we get kids out there writing about what they see out in the environment, writing about their local river. Or doing artwork for that,
Oh, okay.
doing research on it. So, you know, it's all types of skills that students are going to gain from,
Well,
from
that
working
is
on these
diverse
programs.
skills. Bringing
Yeah.
Like this
poetry.
one Trevor from Clackamas High School, roses are red, violets are blue. I like the forest, I hope you do too. And if by chance you disagree, well, you're wrong. Save the trees. He's a future tree hugger for
Yeah.
sure.
For sure, yeah.
It goes on and on, but I just thought that was, they're out there and they're putting it to, I didn't think of it till you mentioned that. Art. It's a science, obviously, but it's also an art too.
You know, you asked how much they had taken
Oh,
away.
you found a spot. Huh?
Yeah, it looks to me like almost 400,000 pounds of trash removed. 2 million, almost 2.5 million square feet of invasive species cleared. That's awesome. 28,400 native trees and shrubs planted, and 13,500 students educated about environmental issues, and 37,765 volunteers donated over 115,000 hours of work to help us accomplish all that. And that's kind of awesome. And then I see they have a citizenship acknowledgement of volunteers, that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
and we just presented those awards at the end of last month. So we had 4 different citizenship award winners in different categories. So I mentioned Steve Meisen out in Westland, who had that Burnside Park where we removed all the ivy. So we awarded him our individual volunteer award. We had a great educator out at the coast, Peter Walzak, who did environmental education for years and years for the Neoconi School District.
Wow.
We gave him as our educator award. For our business award, we presented that to Fred Meyer, who is just wonderful about bringing their volunteers out to the coast for the beach cleanup for years and years.
They provide a lot
as
of foundation money too.
Yes, and so they're a big financial
Yeah.
sponsor of Solve as well. And then our community group was the Seaside Beach Buccaneers. And so these are, they do, I mentioned the 4th of July, so they clean up after the Seaside 5th of July, Seaside
Yeah,
4th of July.
The big 5th of the July.
Yes,
event.
yes. So they have a huge, everyone goes out to Seaside and watches the fireworks and lights off fireworks, and it is quite the extravaganza. But you come back the next morning and the beach, it's looking a little rough when
Yeah.
you show up at 8 a.m. There's
Yeah,
people
like all the
camped
intersections
out
in
and
Portland.
coolers. Yeah, you got coolers everywhere and firework debris. But these guys, these Buccaneers, they dress up as pirates, hand out bags in the 4th of July parade for folks to clean up, and they're up bright and early, 7:30 on the next morning. And you would be amazed. The beach is trashed at 7 a.m. By 9 a.m. it's spotless. You wouldn't even know anything happened.
Oh.
Everything's been picked up. We get about 500 volunteers out there. They pick up a good chunk of that trash is picked up that day, like 5,000 pounds, I think, each year. So they were our citizenship award for our community group, and just
I think
do
some
great
people are
work.
just satisfied to just come out, help pick up, and disappear.
Yeah.
This is your motto. It's our nature to volunteer. I love
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
Because our nature to do a lot of things, but it's also our nature to be in society and to try to participate and contribute. And what does it mean by clean water services?
Yeah, so Clean Water Services is one of our sponsors.
Oh, that's a group.
Yeah. So that's
all
the
right.
water utility in Washington County, actually, that provided those trees from their nursery. So they've provided a lot of the funding for our Green Team program out in Washington County and let us involve those students there.
As well as water environmental services.
Yeah,
and
so
all
that's a
these.
similar organization in Clackamas County. They fund that Rock Creek work that we talked about earlier, actually.
Well, you've been doing
which
this
is really
45
great.
years, so you've made some good connections over the
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, we're lucky. I give trainings on how to lead these volunteer events all the time, and when I'm talking to folks, I really let them know that we're so lucky in Oregon that there are so many organizations that are willing to help out and support. So, I mean, you mentioned Friends of Trees, every park department all over Oregon. So I work with Ashland Parks and Rec. They got a great volunteer coordinator there.
Oh.
Salem Parks and Rec, great volunteer coordinator.
So you work out of all those cities.
And they're just Bend has a great volunteer, City of Bend volunteer coordinator, Cheryl Howard, that does a big invasive removal project out there. And like the Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, just the State Marine Board, they all want to get folks involved. When it would be easy enough to say, oh, we can't help you, figure it out on your own. No, they say, hey, how can we help? How can we
Wow.
help support your volunteer work? So it's really great.
That's amazing. It's just
And it's all over the
So-
state. Is there much going on, like in say Baker and Ontario and on the far other side of the state, which is almost
Yeah.
desert? So
Yeah, we do have some good projects. What is it, in Hermiston, I think it is. They're doing working on the Umatilla River out there and doing a cleanup project. I run the Adopt a River program for the state, where folks adopt, kind of like adopt a highway. You adopt
Yeah.
2 miles of your favorite river, you go out and clean it up twice a year for 2 years. And yeah, we were working with a woman out on the Umatilla in Hermiston, and she's out picking up trash out there on a regular basis. The Powder River, the river out in Pendleton, Bend. Yeah, so we got a lot of work. We don't have as many projects out in that area as we'd like. We'd like to have more frequent so that people can just get involved.
population's not dense.
So yeah, there's not as many people, so it's a little trickier. But actually, for our focus, we're just putting together our annual plan for next year, and one of the key focuses is increasing projects outside the Portland Metro kind of Valley area. So
how
we're
would
getting
you
out there
how would
more.
you increase that?
I think it's outreach. It's getting the word out to folks since that don't see us on a regular basis that we can provide support for this. Yeah, it's getting into maybe some of the youth groups. Our office is 2 doors down from the Boy Scouts of America office, so working with them to get the scout troops in these areas. But yeah, oftentimes the schools are kind of the way to get kids involved, especially in smaller communities where the school is really the heart of the community. Getting them involved.
Yeah, I would think that would have to be it, because like you don't have the saturation of media and well, satellite, but then that's so much as that is distant, it's not local, and you don't have a saturation with internet either. So so I can see how schools would be a major PTA maybe or something.
And we work with water. You mentioned that you had interviewed the Johnson Creek Watershed Council recently, and so we work with watershed councils all over the state, and so they're really great, even in some of these smaller communities that usually they have like one staff person or half a staff person maybe. So at least that's one person you can work with to get folks involved.
Grant High was never, years ago, was like I say, a place where you just throw your debris all over. You go by there now, they got a garden out in front. There is no way they would have put a garden out there years ago. This is just something recently. In other words, it becomes the caring. And recently I guess they got word that you have trash and debris being throwing all over the neighborhood. And so they sent people out not only to pick up that, but to go and talk to the neighbors and say, we're going to try to
Send the diplomats out.
Yeah, they sent out diplomats. So
well, it's like you mentioned, it's people are doing things that they've never done before, and you drive down the street, and it seems like every 4th house has a raised bed in it. And I was wanting to put one in last year, and I decided I was just going to have to buy it because it was easier. My God, there's 1,000 people that are making a living off of that, which means there's that many people that are building these things in their yards. And container gardening and raised bed gardening, that is a connection to the land that, I was near an apartment today, and they had a big garden in the side of the apartment, and the pathways they were gardening
and
along.
the people there are working with it?
These folks are, I think, Russians or Ukrainians, and if I know folks from other countries when they first get here, I know a lot of the Asian people will be waiting for the chestnuts and the walnuts to fall, and most of people of European descent that have been here for a few generations, they go down to McDonald's or to 7-Eleven. So there's that whole other culture thing that is going on, and it's good to see that things have come around full circle, and it's going the other direction. With people that have been here for generations that are seeing that, wow, we can plant seeds, and we can clean this area up. We don't have to be ashamed of it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are doing the food not lawns sort of movement.
Right.
Getting rid of their lawns and doing plants, and some people are even taking it kind of a step further and doing meadowscaping, where they get rid of their lawn and put in like a native flowers and native grasses, and kind of make it a very natural native area in their front yard. So like great wildlife habitat and things. Or you mentioned the garden at Grant High School. We work with a lot of schools to do not only food gardens, but to kind of add something to it where you do like a native plant demonstration garden. So all those plants we mentioned earlier that we plant, you kind of plant those next to the garden, and so people can see, these are our native trees, these are our native shrubs, this is what an Oregon grape actually looks like and out there. So
when it's not covered by ivy.
Yep.
We don't see many of them. You really don't. It may be our state. What is vegetable? What is it?
Well, it's a state flower, I guess.
State
Isn't that
flower.
what
Yeah,
you
Oregon
said?
grape's the state flower. Yeah, you don't see the flowers are only out kind of in the spring.
And they're
the
really
yellow
nondescript,
flowers,
actually. It's kind of
they're not
odd that they
flashy
would choose
flowers.
that, but because there's just little yellow things down in there. Yeah, and you see them on the big taller ones. Mahonia, I think, is the name for them, and they're a very useful plant. The roots can be used for salves and ointments and different things, and there's so much out there. Do you do any of that? Teaching medicinal and
Yeah, that's actually a part of the Green Team program. They do a kind of ethnobotany unit on that. They're able to do a little bit more of that. On our kind of general volunteer projects, we don't have as much time to integrate that into it, but we'd like to. But yeah, I think it's like the cedar, like cedar trees, all the different ways cedar trees were used by native peoples and things. So they learn all about that.
Well, I count myself in this. It is ridiculous. There's so many people, if they didn't have the stores, they'd starve to death. And there's so much you can eat out there, from fresh, the early new fern growth to so many different things you can eat and
Yeah, all
live
the
on.
nettles, dandelions.
Yeah, there's so much out there, and some of them are healthier and more nutritious than the things that we, spend money for. And not so much that young people should be going out living off the land, but to realize, that those are there, and that connection. That what was it? Green Spaces
Green
program.
Team. Yeah, the Green Team. program,
Green
yeah.
Team. That's great.
Yeah.
That's opening up kids' minds to something that has been lost.
And I think it's a way to get to their parents. They go home and then they talk to their parents.
Yeah.
And, what did you do today? I learned about all the plants that I can eat in the forest and how important these plants are. And so it's kind of like that's why they. I used to work for the Red Cross, and when you're teach kids fire safety and earthquake safety, you teach it to the kids and that's a way also to get to the parents to go home. So it's kind of the same idea.
And then the kids can say to their parents, "What did you do today?"
Yeah.
Get them down there.
Yeah.
Out there.
Why aren't you recycling that can there?
Before we get too further, we're down to almost 8 minutes, so you might mention that event again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely want people to know about the Family Volunteer Day event. It's coming up on Saturday, September 23rd. Most of the events are 9 to 1. I think some are 10 to noon, a little shorter. And so we've got 5 different events. You go to the website or give us a call. Cornelius, Portland, Troutdale, those are on. And so we're really looking for anybody can go and volunteer, of course, even individuals, but that we are trying to get a kind of a special day to go out. Bring your kids out, bring your wife, husband out, and volunteer as a family. And then we have our Team Up program has tree planting events that, as I mentioned, people love tree plantings. And so you do tree plantings here during the rainy season. So it's kind of tough to get out there in the rain, but that's when the plants grow the best, and it's kind of the best time
That's
to
when
plant
they'll
them. They get the
survive.
water,
You don't
and that's
want
when they'll
to
survive,
plant
yeah.
them in June unless there's water available. They won't make it.
No, so that's so those are every Saturday on our website as well. But we have opportunities, throughout the week. You can call if those don't work out for you and you want to go out and volunteer, you can give us a call and let us know. And then actually, I brought along the Give Guide here. It's a Willamette Week's kind of holiday giving issue that they have, and so they were nice enough to put us in that this year. So we're asking for donations through the Give Guide, and you can make a small donation to Solve, and they get a free cup of coffee from Boyd's Coffee for donating, and I think they give out a free kind of prize pack. So
Well, these
it's a good thing
hurricanes
to
and
look at as
tsunamis
well.
would give us a break. People are, having to take care of so much that's going on,
know.
and because of these storms. And I know that everybody seems to be supporting that. I know people.
yeah.
I know people that do canvassing, and it makes a difference that they're able to get donations for whatever they're canvassing for. When something like this is going
Yeah.
on, all you got to do is text your phone, and it's attached to your phone bill. Just really painless until you pay it, of course.
Yeah, well, it's just great. It's a great way to, if you can't volunteer, you can give. If you can't give, you can volunteer.
So many
do
ways.
both. So it's a great way to get involved and help the organization out.
I had some sentences here that as to why what you're doing is so important. It says the Chesapeake Bay suffers horrific pollution from the Potomac River running right through the middle of Washington, D.C. Once rich with fisheries, oyster beds, and ample bird life, the bay struggles under poisonous pesticides, endless container trash, plastics, fertilizer, petroleum, and industrial runoff from upstream abusers. While our U.S. Congress watches the polluted Potomac River right beneath its windows, it fails to pass a meaningful 10-cent deposit return container law to thwart those who toss bottles, cans, and plastic containers anywhere and everywhere on the landscape. Unfortunately, wildlife, not knowing what to do with plastics and unable to avoid poisons, suffer horrible deaths from plastic stuffing up their gullets. What a bummer. And that's why what you're doing is important. To try to-
For sure, there's still work to be done, and that's why we're still
yeah.
out there volunteering. But it used to be the litter problem. Used to be a lot worse. With I think, as you mentioned, people used to just throw stuff out their window of their cars. They drove by and
Or empty
and
their
now it's-
ashtrays.
yeah, or
and
things like
piles.
that. And luckily, the kind of obvious stuff isn't as bad anymore. Now it's kind of either the inadvertent, the wind's blowing your
Sure.
trash out of your trash can, or maybe kids that haven't quite gotten the message yet that are still littering. But
Well, it's going to take public opinion to
it's
stop
still
that
gonna-
type of activity.
Yeah.
This,
So
this lady you mentioned, certainly more than one, that cleaned up part of or maybe 2 miles of the side of a river. You ask yourself, where did this come from? How did this get here? Did somebody just throw it like that? It's hard to believe there's like 2 different sides trying to work out and get together, and there's only one right side.
Yeah, to clean up after yourself.
Yeah.
Like Winona LaDuke said, don't make a new mess until you clean up the old mess.
Oh, okay.
So at least get that
yeah,
part done. So
That's right.
what we're down to about less than 4 minutes now. So you might want to take a little bit, a minute or two to kind of talk a little bit more about what your organization is. And we've been talking about it, but just kind of in a thumbnail of it. And see, good people cruising through, they might have just tuned in.
I'll just mention again our mission. So Solve's been around for 45 years, started in 1969 by Governor Tom McCall. And the issues at the time were really, the litter that we've been talking about, people throwing it out their window, and then vandalism, so a lot of graffiti and things like that. And the litter is still definitely an issue, as we've talked about, but these new issues have come up with invasive plants and a lack of non-native plants, and so that's why we changed our name from Stop Oregon Litter and Vandalism. Added that E, evolving into this new organization, really this focus on planting trees and restoring riparian areas. And so, we're kind of a new, refreshed organization in that way, approaching kind of the 30th anniversary of our beach cleanups and the 25th anniversary of our big Earth Day event that'll be coming up on April 26th this year. And our mission is to bring Oregonians together, young and old, new Oregonians, people who've been here for generations, rich and poor, people who don't interact, bring those folks together to improve the environment. Getting out there, solving these environmental problems, and then building a legacy of stewardship, trying to get folks to care about the environment for the long term.
Sure.
So we can get to the heart of some of these
Well, as
issues.
they improve the environment, they improve themselves, too.
Exactly. Yeah. People really enjoy, when we have great opportunities to get involved, either volunteering at these Saturday events, leading the volunteer events. So if you've got a place that collects a lot of trash in your area, or your favorite beach, or favorite river that maybe you fish on and you want to pick up trash there, we're there to help you do that. We've got in-office volunteers that come into our office and help us deal with all the fun paperwork and things like that. We've got ambassadors that go out and do things like this, or go present to groups, or do tabling displays. And then we've got just a great pool of donors that donate their financial resources as well. So just really easy to get involved. Go to that webpage, www.solveoregon.org.
Right, it was right up there on the screen
or give
a
us a
minute
call,
ago.
503-844-9571, and we'll be sure to help you out.
One other question: mostly people need to bring their own cars and get down there to the beach themselves. Okay.
Yeah, so we do help a little bit with carpooling to get to the beach, but there's plenty of projects around that you can access on public transportation as well, and so we can help connect folks to that resource.
Okay. Well,
So we got about a little over a minute here.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great to hear all this. I know you folks did a lot, and I'm like everybody else. Oh, Solve, they do the beach thing, but there's so much else.
That's right.
And even though we all know you do a lot else, didn't really know what it was. And so if someone sees something that needs to be done, if they don't feel up to doing it themselves, they can call your organization up, and then maybe you folks can try to organize something to do it, whether it's invasives or, they see the stream needs trees or whatever.
Yeah, and we'll hope to see you guys out coming Saturday, right out there planting trees with us.
The weekend
hopefully
before
your viewers will
Thanksgiving.
join us as well. Yeah, that'd be great.
No, it's 2 weekends, or is it one?
It's the 23rd.
Yeah, I think it's
Thanksgiving's
23rd,
the 28th.
and then Thanksgiving's the 28th.
Yeah, so it's kind of a kick. I think it's kind of a kickoff too for the holiday.
Okay.
Giving back.
Time passes
Organization.
pretty fast. Okay, and we want to thank the crew very much.
For the
And
first
we're going
hour.
to go to a
So we're gonna
short
run.
break now.
We're gonna do the playback time. Did that get written up?
no,
It
it
didn't
did
get
not.
written up. So I guess I should introduce the video.
Okay.
In harmony with the. Will we getting a message there? And in harmony with the 11, 11, 11, when you have the 11th day of the 11th month, the 11th, when Armistice Day. Oh, he did have that. Now, is
He
that
did
this?
do it.
Oh, he did do it. All
He
right.
did do it.
That's what that knock was about.